The Philadelphia Eagles drafted Mekhi Lemon to be an immediate contributor to the offense.
What are you finding is the biggest adjustment? The biggest adjustment so far?
I think obviously just learn a new playbook. My first time with this playbook, first time with the team. So just making sure I get that down is probably the biggest thing. And then, I feel like, yeah, that's it.
And it's unfortunate, but Mekhi Lemon is losing something that he can't get back right now. Valuable reps.
What has gone into building trust with Jalen Hurts?
Just making sure, I just do my assignment, really. Just getting the extra reps in. Just making sure we'll be on the same page. So, when we go out there, hit the field, we ain't thinking too much.
To add context to that statement I just made, guys, what goes along with it is the fact that other receivers are taking advantage of the opportunities and potentially is the key word here, guys, carving out actual roles within the offense while Mekhi Lemon is sidelined.
How do the veterans like Devontae, Hollywood, Dontavian kind of help you along? What kind of advice do they give you? How much do you go to them?
Yeah, it's great to have them guys, in my room. I'm the youngest, guy there. I'm the only rookie. So to have a bunch of guys, in my room that had experience, in the league, that's the best position I want to be in. So I'm going out there, asking them for advice, just how to do certain things, how to run routes, what they see, because they done it before multiple times, at a high level. So me just being, the student at the game, rookie coming in, just trying to get all the information I can.
I really hate to say this, but as a rookie, every day that Mekhi Lemon misses from training camp, it matters. The fear here is that this is essentially allowing the Eagles' hierarchy at receiver to change while Mekhi Lemon is receiving treatment for something. It's, a hamstring's a hamstring, guys. It sucks. And when you're dealing with rookies and these guys having to come directly out of the college football season into preparing for essentially drills that are closer to the Olympics than they are real football experience, I think that these type of things, they're not necessarily anyone's fault because these guys are not in NFL conditioning yet. But, look, circumstances are circumstances. And, at the end of the day, you got to get on the field and line it up, guys. And it just sucks that Mekhi Lemon is kind of getting taken away for something that, you wish that he could get in there and actually fight out for the role.
So
apparently you suffered a hamstring injury in the spring.
Yeah.
What happened there and how was the recovery?
Recovery is good. Just going out there, just pull a hammy. Nothing too crazy about that. Just making sure, I recovered well. So when I came out to training camp, I was 100% healthy.
But I will qualify this statement with one key fact. And this is something that I think some people need to understand that I'm watching and observing on Twitter and other social media platforms. We are really discussing the early portion of the season. In September and maybe parts of October, this could really have an impact on his role within the offense.
From a non-football perspective, what was the biggest thing you learned about Jalen and spending time with him this offseason?
Man, he a cool guy, really. He just wants the best out of all of us. And then, me being a rookie, new to the team, him bringing me under his wing, I appreciate him for that. He don't got to do that at all. So, him just being a leader, off the field, that was pretty cool to see.
All right, y'all, with all that said, let's talk a little Mekhi Lemon. Let's talk a little bit about the receiving core. Let's talk about the chemistry with Jalen Hurts. And let's get into this one.
Here's Mekhi Lemon. He's got a blocker. Cuts it back and leaps into the...
As I feel out this situation here, and I try to make sense of kind of the hierarchy that will be the Eagles receiving core, I think you almost have to split this thing up into quarters of the season, right? If you're breaking this up into 4 parts of the season, or if you want to break it up into thirds of the season, I think that kind of sets a little different expectation to what's going on within the role. And I do think that there's reason to be concerned that in the early portion, the first quarter to a third of the season, this can have a dramatic impact on Mekhi Lemon because he's certainly going to pick up elements of the offense. He's still in the training room. He's still in the classroom. He's out on the field seeing the reps go there, but he hasn't taken the physical reps. He hasn't built the timing and chemistry with Jalen Hurts. So, of course, that's going to have some sort of a delay in his role. But at the end of the day, I still feel very highly about the young man's abilities and his potential within the offense. It just might take a little longer to really ingrain himself into being a core component of the offense than what maybe was originally expected. Originally, I was like, if you give Makai Lemon the month of September, probably by the time we get around into like early October, I felt very confident that like, okay, Makai Lemon's going to start to emerge. Like, you're going to start to see this guy become like an actual really important part of the offense. I'm not too sure now because the simple facts is that Devontae Smith is going to get the majority share of targets. Dallas Goedert is the safety blanket for Jalen Hurts, and there's a lot of years of, chemistry and things there between those two in terms of the, passing game. And then on top of that, there seems to be, Dontavian Wicks seems to be kind of stepping up and filling into a role that feels like a guy that's going to have the early leg on the 2026 season in terms of like getting the actual targets and being trusted and building chemistry with the quarterback. And then we had two other players that, to be honest, like we had expectations for both players. I don't want to make it sound like we had no expectations for these guys. But both of these dudes have kind of exceeded the expectations. And that's Darius Cooper and Elijah Moore. I think that that's the part that sucks about Makai Lemon is that I truly believe Makai Lemon can play ball. Makai Lemon is a ball player.
Play action. Moss underneath. Oh, what a nice catch. This is Lemon with speed.
If you look at the long-term projections of a Makai Lemon, I don't think that this hamstring injury in his rookie year is going to, derail too much here, guys. It might change some of the perception of the fan base. We all know that some of the members of our fan base are really freaking reactionary. And, sometimes, to be fair to them, they are right about things, right? They were very reactionary when it came to Jalen Reagor and the situation that played out there. And, every now and then, you got to give credit there. I will say on this one, though, I don't think Makai Lemon is Jalen Reagor, guys. I think these are completely different, issues going on at hand here. To begin with, Jalen Reagor's issue, in my opinion, guys, stemmed from the fact that he was a very gifted guy. But there was clearly something behind the scenes going on with Jalen Reagor that didn't make sense when you evaluate it in hindsight, right? The fact that this was a guy that we knew had 4.3 speed but timed it to 4.5 because someone gave him really bad advice about bulking up for the combine, and it actually affected his tested time speed. It was a big-time mistake to do what he did. He got really shit advice from somebody. And, of course, he corrected that later on. I think it was a pro day. Or, no, it was an individual workout, guys, where he had corrected that. But Jalen Reagor was never a nuanced route runner. Jalen Reagor was always a guy that was a sub-6-foot player who could really elevate up and go get the football and had some vertical elements to his game, but was not a nuanced route runner. Makai Lemon is a far more nuanced route runner. Makai Lemon is a different style receiver than Jalen Reagor, even though he's also a sub-6-foot receiver that was selected in the first round, really within a couple of picks of each other. Makai Lemon is going to be a guy that's going to bring attitude to the offense. I think the most disappointing aspect to this is the fact that, Makai Lemon's actually, he's a worker, guys. This is a bring your lunch pail to work with your hard hat type ball player, man. And I think that's the side of Makai Lemon that a lot of people in our fan base, they don't know it yet. They're going to figure it out eventually just because we are a very active fan base. We're, once he gets in there and we start seeing this, people are going to be like, oh, shit, yeah, man, some of us had this twisted a little bit on him. He's actually like a worker. He's going to bring a type of culture and element to just basically physicality to the offense, even as a sub 6-foot, sub 200-pound player. That I don't think a lot of people are going to come. I don't think they're going to see it coming because, to be quite honest with you, you don't really expect it when you hear the national media talk about this young man. But then when you throw the tape on, you're like, oh shit, yeah, bro, this is this is steak and potatoes. This is like an everyday working class type guy here, man. This dude puts the work in. And I do think that's the shitty part about the story that's going to probably be kind of left out. Because you're not going to really know that in the early portion because you're talking about special teams contributions and maybe a handful of snaps where you get to see him where he's not being targeted. Does he give effort? You know what I mean? Is he running all the way through his routes? Is he working up to the second level and showing you physicality in the run game? You got to look for it in these little moments. And I do think it's going to take time for people to kind of catch on to the fact that, oh no, dude, like Makai Lemon's not one of these people who just removes himself from the offense just because he doesn't get a target. Like, this is not the situation with Makai Lemon. Like, Makai Lemon is a damn worker.
How have you felt fielding punts, and if that's a responsibility they ask you to do, how prepared do you feel to step into that role?
Yeah, whatever they need me to do, that's what I'm gonna do. I feel comfortable, doing whatever they need me to do. Like you said, catch a punch, whatever, kick off return, whatever it is. I'm gonna make sure I do that, at a high level.
There's a crazy amount of pressure on our first two picks, to be quite honest. On Makai Lemon and on Eli Stowers in particular, because they're both skill position players. The fan base has pretty high expectations for both players in terms of like what they're ultimately going to be as contributors to the offense. And, to be honest, both of them have had complexities to their start within the training camp. Eli Stowers has been out there. Eli Stowers has been working, but Eli Stowers has got a particular growth phase he has to go through from the tight end position. And, I know some people are critiquing the pick because of the fact that there is a little bit of a window of time here for the development with Eli Stowers, and some people don't like that aspect of things. Me personally, it's about the ultimate payoff. They're looking at what, Eli Stowers is if you can get this guy coached up, what does this type of player become? It's incredibly talented, right? Makai Lemon is the type of person who's going to be a contributor one way or the other for the Philadelphia Eagles offense. It may not be in target share and receptions and yards, and it might take time, right? There might be a failure to launch initially. We were talking about earlier, quarters or thirds of the season where you got to kind of like weigh, like, okay, are we approaching past a third of the season now where it takes Makai Lemon to kind of really work himself into, an actual extensive role because other receivers around him have emerged and built chemistry with the quarterback, and now he's got to start from square one. You know what I mean? He's on stage one of everything where he's got to actually like build it now. Yeah, I mean, those things are all true, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I think Makai Lemon and Eli Stowers are both actually really good football players. I think that you can see from, early interviews with Eli Stowers, the young man's got a damn good head on his shoulders. If you go and talk to the coaches that were surrounding Makai Lemon and you listen to what they're saying about this young man, you're going to realize that some of the national media's coverage of this young man isn't adding up to the young man that the coaches are presenting, what they're saying about the young man. Guys, there are beloved members of the media that I hold in high regards, okay? I think the world of people such as Ray Didinger and Chris Berman and those guys, no doubt. Like, I hold them in high regard, right? Those are two of my favorite people ever. I grew up on ESPN, so Chris Berman and all the noises and all, like, I hold him highly, right? I think a lot about Pat McCaffrey and what he was able to build post his professional career as a sports commentator. I think Pat McCaffrey kind of showed people what the new media was going to look like and how to like truly monetize the thing. But in saying all that, guys, I come from playing and coaching. I spent many years, over 10 years coaching, guys. So I pay attention to what fellow coaches are saying about players. Now, we tend to hold guys in their highest regard, no doubt about it. But every now and then you will hear people that really make the shit house, and the coaches don't necessarily give them glowing reviews. That's not the case with Makai Lemon, man. His coaches are going to bat for him. Doesn't mean the coaches can't be wrong, but I still think it tells you that in terms of the culture, he was a pivotal part of the culture there at USC. They really loved him there. He's being spoken highly of. And oh yeah, I mean, it's not like that guy that's the head coach there doesn't have a relationship with the the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles or Howie Roseman, or our ownership. You know what I mean? Like, relationships in football matter, and I think sometimes people forget that when it comes to like the agencies and their clients, and then even the coachings and the schools and the administrators there and the relationships that they have with organizations. And this particular situation, I think the Eagles are going to allow Makai Lemon a lot of time to grow. I really do. Because, number one, I think the guy is incredibly talented. I think he's a damn hard worker. And I think he's going to be the kind of like player that once fans get a chance to really see him in a certain quantity of, snaps, they're going to be like, yeah, man, like this was a damn good pick. It's just going to take time to launch, in my opinion. But I'll be honest, you never really know about these situations. These things can go sideways on you for sure. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's no concern about Makai Lemon. Of course, there's some concern here.
And Makai, have there been moments where they're throwing a lot at you. Have there been moments where you kind of, like it almost feels like, it's not too much, but like just a lot to handle? And have you had those challenges?
I don't feel like it's too much, whatever they take at me, I appreciate that, knowing that they got the trust, that to me, to, throw things at me like that. So just backing up their trust, just making sure, I do my job.
What is, in this offense, what is new to you that maybe you haven't really played before in terms of what you've been asked to do as a receiver?
Yeah, I feel like just the whole offense, how it's ran, just the whole, huddling up, play calls, all that is new to me. So just making sure I pick up on that fast. So, I hit the field, that I can back up their trust. So, I go out there and do my job.
I'm just saying I think it's too early to start labeling people bust. They haven't even stepped on a damn football field in a professional game yet. They haven't even done the shit in the preseason yet in terms of the Eagles. So, I mean, calling someone a bust before they've even taken a single snap yet, like, no. Concerned, sure. You could be concerned that, like, hey, man, like, it's a guy that's not the biggest in the world and coming right out of camp. The guy's already dealing with a hamstring injury. Yeah, but I mean, come on, man. The guy was playing in Southern California. I think this is more so to do with the fact of the way that they structure things for the combine testing and just the circumstances that follow rookies in the rookie season. Now, if this was happening again, next year when he's got a full off season, he's been involved in an NFL weight room and conditioning and all, I think that's a different story then, guys. Then I think the concern ramps up a little bit. But I mean, I think you kind of have to show a little patience and realize that the Eagles, they did a lot to kind of inshore the room. And they made some damn smart moves inshoring the room. Imagine if they just stopped with Hollywood Brown and they didn't go get Elijah Moore, right? Imagine if they just gave up on Darius Cooper and weren't giving Darius Cooper the opportunity to pretty much play himself into not just a 53-man roster spot, but an actual, like, real meaningful role within the offense. Like, the Eagles kept going at it, man. They made the trade for Dontavian Wicks, which was one of the bigger moves they made of the offseason. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't stop, right? It wasn't just signing Hollywood Brown and that was it, right? Then they traded for Dontavian Wicks. Then they brought in Elijah Moore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're giving Darius Cooper that growth, that ability to show that growth. Like, they did a lot to shore things up. And I think that's the part you got to take solace in, guys, is the fact that they didn't just say, like, oh, we're going to draft Makai Lemon, we're going to trade for Dontavian Wicks, and then that's it. But no, they also went out and signed Hollywood Brown. They signed Elijah Moore. They kept developing guys like Darius Cooper. We've heard a lot of positive things about a guy that I haven't made a video on yet just because he's been around so long that I don't know that it requires a video yet. But, Britton Covey.
Yeah.
You talked about one of the biggest things is learning the offense. We've seen you line up in the slot a lot. Are they giving you, in terms of the offense, learning a lot in terms of splitting wide? Is that as much going to be a part of what you do here as it is lining in the slot? Yeah,
I feel like that's the the good thing about this offense, that you can move guys all around, not just being in the slot, but all around. So whatever they need me to do, I'm making sure I'm available to do that.
It's going to be interesting, guys. I actually really like Makai Lemon, but I understand people having concerns. I just don't think that I don't think it's reasonable for people to be labeling this young man with a bust label. I think that's an insane proposition for this stage of his career, in my opinion. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to throw you up some videos up here that go over some player evaluations. I'll throw you one over here that deals with the receiving core, and I'll throw you up another one over here. We'll go deep into the receiving core. I'll give you a guy that's probably not making the 53-man roster. I feel pretty confident in saying that, but a guy that I think on the practice squad, giving opportunity and a chance to kind of really ingrain himself here in Philadelphia. I think there's upside to this player. I want you to check this out right here, man. I'm just going to call him Ezukanmu, okay? I want you to take a look and check out Eric Ezukanmu because I actually think this guy's got some talent. All right, y'all, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And for all y'all that are hitting that hype button, guys, thank y'all so much. And with that said, guys, peace. I'm out of here.